Hello gorgeous peeps, I'm Chris from TechSpert, and for the last week I've had the very catchily titled Panasonic RZ-S500W True Wireless Earbuds stuffed inside of my head to test them out and see if they really are truly worthy Bluetooth buds. They'll be released in UK stores in June, hopefully just a few days after this video review goes live, and they will cost you 189 quid. Quite a lot of money for a pair of true wireless earbuds, but then they do pack some premium features like Active Noise Cancellation, and so when you factor that in, they are actually quite a bit cheaper than a lot of rivals that also have ANC like those Sony WFs. So here's my full review of the Panasonic RZ-S500Ws. How many takes did it take to get that right? I'm not even gonna tell you. And for more of the latest greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now these Panasonic buds can be snaffled in either black or white colours. There are no shiny, vibrant hues to be had here. They are very comfortable to wear even for prolonged periods, and I'm talking literally hours of constant use without extracting them from your skull. But unfortunately they are also quite, how shall I put this, sticky, outy, definitely the technical term for it. They jut out from your ears quite a way, and I do feel rather conspicuous when I am actually wearing them out and about in public. They're not the worst offenders that I've had lodged in my lug holes by any means, but they're not too subtle either. But at least they don't have those stupid dangly down stem bits like the Apple AirPods. But thankfully, despite that bulky design, they certainly don't feel heavy or anything, and they do lodge in there quite comfortably and quite securely as well. So even a good bit of running, jogging, whatever you want to do, they don't feel like they're going to go flying out of your head. And just to prove a point, watch test! Unlike most Bluetooth buds, these Panasonic True Wireless earphones are IPX4 splash resistant as well, so you can jog in a drizzle, do squats in a downpour, whatever you fancy. But these are also unfortunately one of those annoying pairs of True Wireless earbuds that have a constantly flashing LED built into them as well, which during the day is absolutely fine, but when you're using them at night, it kind of flashes right in the face of whoever you're sleeping beside in your bed, which goes down about as well as a turd sandwich. Pairing thankfully is an absolute piece of pie that you just yank the Panasonic RZ-S500Ws out of the charging case and they'll immediately connect up with whatever device they were previously paired with. Otherwise, if they fail to find that, they'll just try and broadcast themselves and get paired up with something new. You've got the usual built-in touch controls as well, with just a tap of the old surface. If you find you will occasionally accidentally activate the controls if you're just sort of moving the earbuds about, just repositioning them or something, but overall they work quite effectively. A single tap of either bud will pause or play your music. It then gets a little bit complicated. You need to double tap the left bud in order to bump the volume down a bit, triple tap it in order to boost the volume up, and that's a pretty fast triple tap as well, so if you've got a bit of arthritis or your hands are a bit shaky, then you might struggle a bit. And meanwhile, if you want to skip tracks, then that's a double tap or a triple tap of the right bud instead. You can also long press the left bud here in order to activate your smartphone's assistant. Sometimes it takes a little while, but it gets there in the end. While long pressing the right bud will turn on the Active Noise Cancellation. And if you download the Panasonic Audio Connect app, you'll find that you can also turn on the noise cancellation from within there as well. And not only that, but you can also play around with the actual level of the ANC as well, boosting up the effectiveness. Although I'm not really sure why you wouldn't just have it bumped all the way up to max when you need it anyway. And I found that when it is cranked all the way up to 11, the ANC is fairly respectable. For the likes of traffic and trains and low rumbly noises like that, it does a bit of a job of sort of dampening it. But general chatter and other background noise, I found it didn't really do much at all when it was activated compared with when it was completely switched off. It isn't as effective as the Sony WFs, and it's not as good as the One More ANC Pros, which I reviewed just a couple of weeks back as well. Now, if you were to long press that right bud again, you would go from ANC mode into the ambient mode instead. And this is basically the opposite of ANC. It's available in quite a few true wireless earbuds, and especially the over-the-head earphones with ANC. Basically, this uses the external mics to pump in environmental sound to your lug hole so you can hear an announcement, have a quick conversation with someone without actually extracting the buds. The only problem is that it doesn't also at the same time pause your audio or even lower the volume, so you'll have to do that as well manually, otherwise you still won't be able to hear what the chuffing heck is going on. As well as allowing you to mess around with that ANC feature, the Audio Connect app also serves up an equalizer of sorts, as well as a bass enhancer and a clear voice feature too. And playing around with these definitely has an effect on your audio, although not a massive one. It's not exactly a game changer, and I definitely, instead of just a straight up equalizer, would have preferred a few presets thrown in there as well, depending on the type of music that you're listening to. But still, on those default audio settings, the Panasonic RZ-S500Ws churn out some good sounding audio. They're definitely at the upper end of the scale for true wireless earbuds when it comes to full-bodied sound, and by that I mean plenty of power for your rock and metal tracks. Those shredding guitars definitely come through with plenty of punch. And acoustic tracks and more mellow music also gets a thumbs up too. I found that each instrument had a little bit of room to breathe, although these definitely aren't as good as the likes of the Jabra Elites for providing that full sort of surround sound effect, covering the full range efficiently, and also picking up some of those finer details on more complex tracks. So overall, not the best around, but I certainly was not disappointed. And inside of that audio connect app, you've got a few other features to play around with, including an approximate battery readout as well, rounded up to the nearest 10%. Although I did find that often didn't update unless I actually shut down the app and then reopened it more often than not, so make sure you do that, otherwise you might think you've got more battery life remaining than you actually do. And there's some other handy stuff lurking away in the settings as well, so you can change up the auto hibernation delay, you can choose your favourite voice assistant with built-in Alexa support here on the Panasonics, and you can also track down your buds if they've done a runner, providing they're actually still connected via Bluetooth. And those external mics are actually used during calls as well in order to pick up on any ambient noise that might be disturbing for the person on the other end. Not necessarily disturbing, I'm not talking like while you're butchering people or anything like that, but anything that might distract them, and it just cuts it down so your voice comes through nice and clear. Seems to work quite nicely, especially if there's a bit of wind noise, something like that. As for battery life, well, Panasonic reckons you'll get up to 6 hours on a full charge with ANC turned on. I found it was actually a bit more generous than that. It was more like 6.5 hours of full-on constant music streaming before they finally died and had to be shoved back in the case for a recharge. They were pretty consistent, draining about 10% every 40 minutes or so. And without ANC turned on, I found that it was more like 8 hours on a single charge again before they had to be shoved back in the case. So not exactly a world-beating effort, but still better than a lot of Bluetooth buds, which tend to give you around sort of 6 to 7 hours of use. Of course, my favourites, as a long-time viewers will know, are still the Creative Outlet Golds. They will give you like 12 hours of constant use on a single charge. Those things are absolute marvels. And when it is time to give the Panasonic RZ-S500Ws a recharge, if that is indeed what they're called, my head is just a mess of numbers and letters right now, you get 2 full recharges basically from the case itself before the case itself also needs to be charged, which thankfully ain't a ball ache because it takes good old Type-C USB. There's no wireless charging support unfortunately here, and the case is, to put it mildly, a little bit ugly. It's just an ugly, chunky plastic box, basically no frills or flair or anything like that, but hey ho, small thing to complain about really. So that right there is my full review of the Panasonic RZ-S500Ws. Sorry, my brain is just turned into mush. It's very hot in this studio, and frankly the name is pants. The actual buds themselves are pretty good. They're not one of the best out there. I'd say if you've got the money to spend, just pay a little bit more, get those PowerBeats Pros, which are absolutely stellar and better suited to outdoor activity and the like as well. I still prefer the Jabra Elite around that sort of price point for the audio quality. That absolute brilliant sounds that you get from those things is just incredible considering the size of them. And if the ANC is a big feature for you, then definitely check out the Sony WFs or the One More ANC Pros as well. Fantastic earphones, definitely. So that's all from me. Please do subscribe, ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a lovely week, people. Cheers everyone, love you.